Well, how's everybody doing today? It is Thursday morning. I am headed into Milton Cat. Jared's having some issues with the W9. It's raining, so we've got some time to address those issues. He's having some fluctuation in the oil pressure on it. We assume that it's a oil pressure sending unit. The wires seem to be brittly hard and whatnot, so we're gonna start there, change the oil pressure sending unit on it. It ended up spitting out a bearing on air compressor the other day, and it dropped all them pieces we're hoping into the base, and it ended up chewing up the adapter plate on that compressor. Now that adapter plate is aluminum, and all that ended up in the oil. He ended up changing the oil anyway. We're wondering if the screen on the bottom of the oil pump ain't maybe slightly plugged from that aluminum powder from that adapter plate. So we're gonna pull the oil pan off of it, check the oil pump screen. I'm going to go ahead and replace the oil pump as well, since we have that oil pan off of it. I don't want to wait until we get back chopping again to notice that, you know, the oil pressure sending unit didn't really help things out. So I'm going to get an oil pump, like I said, oil pan gasket, oil pressure sending unit, and the wastegate on the turbo is shot, so we're going to go ahead and get a turbo for it and a set of exhaust manifold gaskets. Exhaust manifold gaskets have been leaking for a little while. We knew we had somewhat of an issue going on with the turbo, so we're going to wrap all that up here today. So more money to spend on the old W900. The other day, the compressor that we got for it, the compressor was $750, I believe, and the gear was like two something, maybe low sevens on the compressor, around 200 for the gear, and like $100 and some for the adapter plate along with the gasket. So we put about $1,000 into it on Monday. And then it's going to be, oh Christ, I don't even want to guess, but I'll tell you what the what those charges will be once we get the parts from Milton Cat here. So we're going to run into Milton, and we're going to get the parts we need and get back to the shop. Alright, we are on our way back from Milton Cat right now. Everything that we needed for the W9 Milton Cat ended up having in stock. We ended up picking up a turbocharger, an oil pump, an oil pan gasket. What else did we get? Exhaust manifold gaskets and new studs. An oil pressure sending unit. Some miscellaneous pieces. Today's bill ended up being $5,600. Of that $5,600, there's about $1,600 and some odd dollars worth of core charges between the oil pump and the turbo. Is $940 for the core on the oil pump, and $700 and some odd core charge on turbocharger. So we're gonna get back to the shop, start working on W9. We've got a couple of mergers actually to work on, and some other miscellaneous stuff throughout the day here. So let's get back to the shop and get this W9 tore apart. Jared and Kerr should be working on it already, so we will check in throughout the day here. Alright, we're back at the shop here now. These guys are pulling this inspection cover off the front of the engine on the W9 just to check that gear on the inside of that front cover there to make sure we're going to be okay. We're going to replace them gears at a later date unless there's a lot of wear in there. And if we've got a lot more wear, we're going to have to get after that sooner than later. I've got the 330 merger inside here now. We had a gearbox go to hell on it yesterday. I got the PTO cover off in here, and I've got these bolts out. I've got the pump stack off in there, and we've got a bunch of bearings and stuff gone on the inside of this gearbox. So I'm going to pull this gearbox off. I've got a new gearbox on the bench over here that Nate ended up going and getting here this morning, and we're going to go ahead and put this new gearbox on there and get this merger out the door. These guys are going to continue to work on the W9. They've got to get the turbo off yet, drop that oil pan, and go from there. Alright, so I've got the gearbox off, and that is on the bench over here. Evidently a bearing had went inside the gearbox, cooked all the oil out of it, if there was any oil left. So this is the inner spline hub that runs the pump itself, and then the bearings had went, chewed up all the teeth. The pump quit working. So we'll get this tore apart and get this new one on there. We've got to pop out this shaft here and get the new shaft in that pump. Alright, they've got the front cover off. Now this, shine that light in there, Jared. This gear here, the bottom one, is the gear that runs over and runs the air compressor right there. And those teeth look fine, and the teeth that it comes up against this upper gear here, and they look fine. So we're good there. It's going to be fine. So yeah, we're just going to have to keep an eye on it though. Maybe we tear it apart here in a month or so and see what it's done. But in order to get that gear off, it's down here, we got to take the whole timing cover off. So and then we probably ought to replace all of them, every one that comes in contact with it. So this one comes in contact with that one, and that one with this one, and
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, so
them are just 5/16 bolts.
Yeah,
They go into there.
Alright, now we're back on this gearbox here for this merger. I've got the shaft that the PTO off the tractor runs out of this old gearbox. I've just got to put it into a new one here, and then we'll load this up with oil and get it back on the merger. Well, that was thundering and lightning. It's been coming down like real hard. You can kind of let the camera focus in. We are puddled up here pretty good. We've got a pond out there on the end of the driveway coming out of the shop. It has been raining hard. It is 12:30 right now, and we got a hard rain here at about 8 o'clock this morning too. So back on to the shop work here. I've got the gearbox on the merger. Got to put the PTO shaft on it, fill it up with oil yet. We're over here on the 900. I just got a couple of bolts to cut off. Actually, Kerr was working on this. I've got to cut some bolts off of this turbo to get that off in there for him, and then he's gonna go back to working on this. They're getting cover on the front, putting the fan back on, and getting that stuff together there. So we're just going to snip these bolts very carefully on this turbo. Cat does not like any torch marks in the turbo, so we're going to make sure that we keep the torch marks out of it, and we'll go ahead and cut this off.
gonna hit that.
Goddamn oil line out of here, will ya?
Give me the bar.
Okay. Alright, got the exhaust manifold off. I cut the bottom 2 bolts and the top 2. Ooh, they're a little warm. So we've got new exhaust manifold gaskets that we're going to go ahead and put on before we bolt that new turbo on there. Now, they will not give you your core back if there's any gouge marks in the casting on this turbo, and I don't have anything on the front side, nor do I have anything on the back. There's some slag there, but you just take and break that off with a screwdriver, and then there is evidence that there's been a torch on there. You take a wire brush and you clean all that up, pour water on it, let it sit a couple days, let it turn brown like the rest of it, and then we're good. So you're going to get a play. Play is common in a turbo. This turbo here had a wastegate problem. What do you got?
It's gonna gouge.
Okay, this one has been rubbing, so this one's definitely got a gouge to it, and you could see a little bit of wear right there on the bottom of that fan blade, as the inside is a little, yeah. So this has got a little bit of wear on it, but mainly it was the wastegate. Jared was saying the wastegate wouldn't respond correctly, so
Yeah, we did get it to rub a couple of times, but now we can't get it to
yeah. So on with the new one. Alright, I've got the gearbox all on there, full of oil. Everything's all, the pump stack is put back on there. And this gearbox runs the 3 pumps that end up running the belts and the pickup teeth. So you got a 3 stacked pump, so each section here does one of the wings on the merger. So bearing ended up going in this gearbox, it tore itself to hell, and that's why we had to replace the new one. So now we're going to move over to the W9. I'm going to start taking this exhaust manifold off here. I've got a couple of the studs already out. It looks like this is going to be an easy job. Usually they're good for some, if not all, of the studs to break, but it looks like we're going to be able to get these out without any trouble. Put this bad boy on the tire and let it fall on the floor. Now you got to peel them guys off. While you're peeling them, here, go ahead and take that over to the bench. While you're peeling that off, I'll go ahead and try to get the studs out the rest of the way. So we've got the exhaust manifold off. Now what I have to do is I have to work on getting these studs out. I've got 3 back here, and I've got 1, you can barely see it, up front here. So we're gonna put some nuts on there and weld the nut to the bolt. We're gonna see if we can't get them out, and we're just gonna pull. Actually, I got 3, 4, I've got 5. Alright, we'll just continue spinning these out. And that's going to do it for the stud removal. Basically the rest of the job here, we just got to clean up the head, and then we can start throwing new parts back on. Alright, we've got all the studs out, and I pulled all of the little tube inserts out of the head. We've got new ones going in with new gaskets and everything, so we gotta scrape all this crap off in here, off the side of the head. We ended up having 5 studs that we had to weld nuts onto, and all of them came out relatively easy. So we don't have any studs left in here. We're going to go ahead and clean up the side of the head, and then we can start assembling this. Well, that's going to just about put the wraps on the video here for Thursday night anyways. I've got the turbo all in place. All the clamps are tight, oil lines are hooked up, studs are tight, exhaust manifolds on, all that happy jazz. Now, earlier, Jared and Kerr took the oil pan off, which we're going to get into that in a minute. The reason why they took the oil pan off, this air compressor took a crap about a week ago, and when it did, a bearing went inside the air compressor itself. There's a drive gear that runs off the engine in there, and when that bearing went, it shifted the gear over, and that gear ate up the adapter plate here. Pieces of the bearing, all that material from that adapter plate ended up down in the base. So they pulled the oil pan off to clean all the debris out of the base here, and then as you can see, right down in the bottom of the oil pan is a lot of flaking and whatnot from the bearing from that compressor when that compressor kind of dusted itself. So we're going to get this all cleaned up. I've got a new gasket to go on this oil pan, and we're also wondering about the oil pump itself, if it had been compromised at all. So we've got a new oil pump here to go on to it, and then we're going to roll in underneath the engine here, and I'm going to show you the strainer on this oil pump. All right, we are down. Ouch. All right, we're down underneath the engine right now, and then I've got this pail underneath here because we're still draining a little bit of oil. The oil pan has been removed. The oil pan goes up in, right up in here. This is the strainer that goes on the oil pump, and there's some debris that's stuck. You can kind of see the debris that's stuck to the strainer that's on the bottom of the oil pickup tube, and then the oil pump is right there. So we're going to pop that oil pump out of there. For what little bit of money they are, it's a good insurance policy to go ahead and swap that out. I'm going to feel a little more confident in the problems that we had the other day, that we're going to alleviate some problems maybe. So we're going to get this cleaned up. The boys are going to get on it in the morning and get that oil pump off in there and get the new one on, and get the oil pan back up onto the truck here. Alright, so it is late Thursday night here. It is, I don't know if you could see that or not, but it is just after 8:30 Thursday night. So I'm going to call it a night now, and we'll have to, we're not going to make a two-part video, but we'll finish the rest of this up on Friday. So we'll rejoin you in a short little bit of time here, but it's going to be Friday when we come back to you. All right, the boys have got this all back together. We got the turbo in place, put a new oil temperature sending unit on there. The oil pan's all in place. Got a new cat filter on there. It's all full of oil. There's the cat filter right there. Oil pan is all in place. Everything's all ready to roll. So Jared's going to jump up in there and he's going to fire it up for the first time. Now we'll just take a gander and make sure this turbo's build up air pressure and then he'll be backing outside. Well, that's going to do it for this video, folks. Jared's just actually circling the shop here now. Sounds like it's running nice and strong, so, well, there he's pulling out. There he is right there. Well, we've got her back in the shop here as Jared and Kurt did most of the work on this. What kind of boost did you get out of it?
I got 30.
30 without a load. That's pretty good. Well, we're just going to check over a couple things. We've got to tighten up some exhaust manifold studs and some turbo mountain bolts and whatever like that. But that's going to do it for this video, folks. I want to thank you for watching. And we'll catch you at the next video.